Tips from Trestle is brought to you by eMenu Choice Point of Sale, Wyzox AI, and Benny Keith Foods. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Welcome into Tips from Trestle. This week, I'm sharing a great conversation I had at last fall's Georgia Senior Living Association annual conference. I was able to sit down with Kelly Singleton Myers and Jessica Phaup. They're two longtime senior living sales leaders who believe the sales process is a preview of what life will feel like inside your community. We were able to dig into the session they presented, the power of curiosity-driven sales, and why slowing down in the discovery process can actually help you close more and close faster. You're going to hear practical tools like their treasure box, the power of the pause, flipping closed operations into open ones, and cutting the industry jargon that breaks trust. So let's dive into this great conversation with Kelly and Jessica. Jessica, Kelly, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to talk to you today.
So we are at the Georgia Senior Living Association conference, and you ladies have a presentation that really came up. It's called The Power of Curiosity-Driven Sales. And so I want to get into that a little bit. This will come out after the conference, so to give everybody a peek into what your presentation is like. I'm excited to talk to you. Jessica, I want to start with you.
Sure.
When you shared kind of the outline of what you were going to talk about, you had this quote that I thought was really insightful. The sales process is a preview of what life will be like in the community.
Sure.
And so I'd love for you to maybe expand on that a little bit and what that means for our non-sales directors, what that kind of looks like from your perspective.
I think sometimes we feel like we'll come in and meet with the salespeople and you'll get all the information and the customer will be satisfied with that. But really, when you're coming to a community for the first time, most likely, you are getting the experience of what it could look like to live there for a loved one. So from everything to how we answer the phone. Did you call the community and no one called you back? Oh, maybe they're not going to follow up if I have a question or a problem. So I come in, the dining room's in disarray. Oh, is the dining room always in disarray? You know what? No one's really speaking to me as I'm going through the hallways. So every single thing we do in every department is a reflection for families to say, is that what it's going to look like if they live here? So if we disappoint someone, or if we don't follow up, or if the community is not like you're expecting to see some activity going on and engaging, and there's nothing going on, even though the brochure says we've got all these wonderful things going on in the community, and you walk in and there's nothing, and it's a reflection of, is that what it's going to be like when my loved one lives there? So it is a preview. It's a peek into what it could look like.
Kelly, one of the things that we're going to talk about in your presentation is this paradox where slowing down will actually make you close better and close faster. I think for people who maybe aren't top-notch salespeople, that seems counterintuitive, right? Like we're always in this hurry up and close, hurry up and close. Can you walk us through a real example of what that looks like and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think saying slowing down in sales is always counterintuitive, right? The minute you say slow, people are like, we got to move fast. We got to move fast. We got to move fast. We need to move.
We need 3 more.
Yes, 3 more. We need 3 more this week. 3 more this week. Go get them. But I think, what it really means is slowing down to generally understand the prospective resident, understand their family, understand where emotionally, how ready are they to make this really big decision, and understanding what's going to put their mind at rest versus what we think they need to know. So in a sales situation, oftentimes we get very excited to talk about the great things that we have. Communities do have great things. They do have great activities, even if you don't get to see them. They're probably so good activities. good food, even if you didn't get to eat there, right? And as a salesperson, you get excited to share that because other people that have moved in and problems have been solved. So you get excited about that. Also, although everybody has their own unique story, some of the stories sound similar. They're not because it's not the same person, but they sound similar. My dad lives alone. He's fell. He's went to Walmart the other day and he called me and he couldn't figure out where his car was or whatever the story might be. And so when we hear sound bites, we immediately reach to say, okay, I've got a solution for that. And we feel really good about that because we know we have a solution for it. The challenge is if just because dad called me because he forgot where he parked his car at Walmart doesn't mean from a sales perspective that we want to start talking about memory care. Because from an emotional perspective, that's a huge leap. So asking more questions and really trying to understand, like, how does his confusion show up? I think with that right now, you have more tools, you have more information that will help you personalize the journey, stay aligned with the customer where they're at. And then as they are ready to make that decision, you've been with them on the journey, right? You've been with them on the journey. And so when the right time comes, it happens to just be the right, because you've gotten there together. So I think the more you do that, the more those sales are going to close. Yeah. So if you think about a sales pipeline, we like to work what some people might refer to as hot leads because they will more immediately move in. We try, right? AI is helping to work the leads that are much longer tail on it, right? But really at the top of the funnel. If we can build relationships because we stay aligned with them, more of those are going to close.
Almost like you're pushing them a little further in the funnel because of that connection.
Absolutely. And so they get more comfortable. They tell you more information. Nobody shows up on the first day and gives you all the goods. They're like, hey, I don't know you at all, but let me tell you about all these personal things I'm concerned about in my family. And it's about closing more of the leads that are in your pipeline already, which should result in consistent movement. Because if you're working with everybody, people are going to start moving through the pipeline. What is the stat? It is 10% of all leads close. So 10% of all the people who inquire, this is industry-wide statistic, all the people that inquire, only 10% of them close. So if you alienated, if you alienated 2/3, you're the only one who's not alienating that. Right? It's going to feel different because there's such a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
But it's going to feel different to a customer if you're like, how are you doing with this decision?
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do, like what Kelly is saying, is in that discovery process, what we find the average to be in all the mystery shops that we've done and partners that we've worked with on mystery shops is that directors of sales or sales CRDs, whatever they're called, right? They ask 2 to 3 questions and then they move on. Like, now it's my turn to sell and talk. Yeah. And if we don't gather the information, to Kelly's point, then we're only working this 10%. Because the more we know, the more we can nurture those 90% along the way. And if we're not slowing down, then we treat every lead the same as if every advance is the same. And so we need to slow down to say what makes sense in their journey for this next step.
No, for sure. Sounds counterintuitive, but as you talk through it, it just makes more and more sense to me. Maybe because I'm not a salesperson. Kelly, one of the things that was a part of your presentation is you talk about the treasure box. And so obviously that caught my eye. And so I'd love for you to explain to the listeners what that is, what you mean by that, and then how you teach sales teams to use that information.
Yeah. A treasure box requires a great deal of discipline and patience, which is hard to do, right? It's hard to be patient. It's hard to just gather and not solve. And so from a discipline perspective, the salesperson, their job is to gather information. Because at the end of the day, we need to help somebody understand what kind of decisions they're moving forward. And so the treasure box is, if you were to think about it as a visual, right? For me, I've got this box and the lid is open. And I'm talking with a family. And I've learned that twice her father has not been able to find his car in the Walmart parking lot. Okay, that must be really scary for him. Talk about that a little bit. You put it in the box. Don't solve it. Don't say, good news, we have memory care. Right? Good news. So tell me about some of the other things that you think your dad is struggling the most with. And they say, I've been over there a couple times. And honestly, like all the medication things are open. And I have no idea. Some have pills, some don't.
No.
Let's talk about that a little bit. How have you found that's impacting him? Have you had to go a bit more? I would ask better open-ended questions if it wasn't so early and I only had one cup of coffee. Yeah. Then don't ask for it. But you said he put it in the box. It's like you're having a real human conversation where it's not like you say something, I solve it. You say something, I solve it. I want to understand you. And so as the box gets more and more full, pretty soon you can't even close the lid because you've learned a ton of things about this person. So then when it does come to, I've been thinking a little bit about all of the things that you've told me about your dad and how your family's dealing with it. And I thought maybe the next best thing to do would be, and it's going to be something that's very related to something in the box and probably not necessarily related to care. Because all communities give great care. That's not going to help you stand apart. Most communities don't listen. Most communities don't present themselves in a way that says, I'm here with you and I want to help you, but I'm going to do that through really understanding what your dad needs and who he is as a human being. And of course, we're going to take great care of him. Of course, he's going to get great food. Of course, we're going to have a little bit of fun. But it is taking that step to genuinely fill the box. So when it is time to start presenting solutions, your solutions make sense. It's not, hey, I'm thinking about my dad moving in about 90 days. We know what we should do is get an assessment. Because Jessica, we did this funny thing when back in an organization that we used to work for, and we looked at advances. Okay, all the advances. So Jessica, what are the top 3 advances, regardless of where someone might be sitting in the pipeline?
Tour, an assessment, or lunch.
Yep. So no matter where you are in making that decision, those are the
You're gonna get one of those 3.
Those are these things that people add. Not valuable. If I'm 90 days out, I don't need an assessment. If I'm not really concerned about my dad's eating, I don't need to come in for lunch. And so we got to get out of this cycle of doing advances that are things that we need to happen, not necessarily things that the family needs to happen right now. So the more we are me, the more they are put in a situation where everyone sounds the same when they're touring. Every community, right? Sure is the whole dog and pony show, talks about everything that they do. It all sounds the same. Quite frankly, a lot of it looks the same these days. And so if the only difference then becomes size of room and price, right? Yeah. So it's not a feeling. It's not a connection.
It's like a commodity.
Absolutely. You're not making, so like what Jessica was saying earlier on, right? You haven't built a connection that then helps you as a customer say, I felt good about that. I feel like they asked a lot of great questions about Mom. Nobody asked those questions. Nobody asked about her gardening. Or maybe they did, and then they just went on to another question. They didn't say what kind of garden to grow. What kind of things really gave her the most joy when she was out there? How did gardening, what did that look like when you were younger? Finding out like what kind of things she liked to plant. That's a very different conversation. And when you are then saying with them, here are some of the things I'd like to show you today, all of a sudden the garden that you have out back where they grow herbs and the dining services team uses her, all of a sudden that becomes really important. Like you heard me. I matter. You heard me. You get my knowledge. Absolutely. And if you do that, you will clearly stand apart regardless of what the community looks like, how big the room is, because at the end of the day, people want to know when my mom goes to bed every night, how was she treated? How was her day? And that's not pretty rooms and that's important. Like people like to live in pretty places. It's important. I'm not saying it's not important.
But it's all, like I said, about that feeling, that connection. Love that. Jessica, I want to get tactical a little bit in this conversation. You talked about flip the script in your presentation. And it's this exercise where you take those closed questions and turn them into open-ended ones.
Yes.
Talking about. Do you have any examples that you can share with our listeners on what that might look like?
Sure.
For over a century, Benny Keith has been a trusted leader in the food service industry. As a broadline distributor, we offer an extensive selection of products, delivering to 21 states through 10 distribution centers. We can help you create a thriving culinary culture by pairing quality products with customized solutions that elevate your residents' dining experience. Our team of registered dietitians provide unmatched customer service by modifying menus, selecting recipes, ensuring regulatory compliance, and more. Quality, value, and service are at the heart of everything we do. Benny Keith Foods puts the care back in healthcare.
So let's see. Do you think that you want a 1-bedroom or a studio? Okay, closed in the question. Studio, 1-bedroom, A or B. What kind of space do you think, Aaron, that your father would be more comfortable in? When we're looking at these different apartments, suites, what do you think he'd be more comfortable in? Do you think they'll participate in any activities while they're here? Tell me a little bit, Aaron, about what kind of things your dad loves to enjoy. Like, how does he spend his day? What brings him joy throughout the day? Are there any, tell me about the hobbies that he used to enjoy or still enjoys, right? That way you're eliciting a story and getting to know behind the surface of check, they do activities, check, they like good meals, check, right? Yeah. Everybody's asking those questions, but are they trying to connect in a way and learn more about that individual? So to Kelly's point, by slowing down to do that, then we know more about what's going on with them to be able to solve later in the process.
And I feel like that when you were doing the room question, right? You want 1 or 2. In my head, I'm thinking, what if you've got 5 choices?
Right.
You just left 3 of them completely off the table.
Right.
Through that. And so I really appreciate hearing like how you done that, literally about gathering information and just how can I fill my legal pad full of information and stuff in that treasure box, like you were saying.
Right.
Absolutely.
One of the things, Kelly, in the presentation that you guys really emphasize is listening with presence and embracing silence, that pause, if you will. So I've met a lot of salespeople. They tend to be talkative, very outgoing.
Yep. Helps.
So if that's your natural state, how can you help them get more comfortable with the pause, with sitting in that silence a little bit?
Yeah, because it's a hard thing to do. You're right. By nature, we're excited to solve. By nature, we're excited to help you. By nature, we like to fill the space with all the wonderful things that we do. And we call it the power of the pause. You have to practice it and not practice it on prospective customers. And we'll do an exercise, right, in one of our trainings where people are learning information about each other. But at some point, you need to find a place to just sit in it, just to pause from there. And while you're pausing, be thinking about all the things that you've just learned and then let the customer fill the space because they will. They will. We just got a note from somebody who had read the book and she was writing a note to her senior vice president of sales. And one of the things she said in there was that in all the things she read in the book, the power of the pause was something she was most uncomfortable with. I'm uncomfortable with that. And her note was she had done that. She was with someone, she had learned a lot of information, and she decided right after some powerful questions that she asked to just sit for a minute. And she sat for a minute, and what the daughter said to her, she started to tear up. And the daughter said, not a single person had asked me how my mom's going to feel about this move. And that's not what they were talking about. That's there, it's in the room, but they weren't talking about that. But she sat there just for a minute. And the daughter is reflecting on everything she said. But to remember that when we ask good questions, sometimes that's the first time someone's ever asked them that kind of question. It's the first time that they're having to say out loud challenges that someone they love are having. And that's really hard, right? And so there's a lot of emotion in that. You can't rush it. You have to let that unfold by asking great questions and pausing for a minute. She is moving in, by the way. The power of the pause. The pause word. Yes.
I've learned that in like leadership, right? To get information out, sometimes just it gets uncomfortable. You can live through the uncomfortableness of it. They're going to share more or they're going to feel that. And so it makes perfect sense to do that in this process. One of the things, Jessica, that you mentioned is changing the language. So a lot of times we get into this clinical talk because we do want to offer care. We want to provide. We want to know how are we going to take care of mom or dad. And you work on making it more empathetic language. And I think that's really important as the story you just told is full of empathy, full of emotion. And when you're working with sales teams, what are some of the mistakes you see them making on that front?
We have a very large jargon in our industry, right? From ADL to IDL to assessment to
IL.
IL,
Yeah.
RW,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, right? You have, and that's great when you're speaking to your colleagues because you have the same language, right?
Yeah.
Kelly understands that completely. But if you're walking in as a consumer, they don't know what an ADL is. They don't know that already makes a disconnection because now the caller doesn't understand what that means. And so they're going, I don't know what that means. It's that disconnect it breaks the connection. And we have fun with this where we play games you have 10 seconds to turn ADL into another way of saying that. Tell me then, Erin, about how does your mom manage her day? How does she manage in the kitchen? Because that's an ADL, cooking. Not tell me about the ADLs that your mom does on a daily basis. So we're really trying to, again, through that language, create connection, not disconnection. And that's what, if you're saying things like Kelly tells us, you want to tell the story about the gentleman who with his daughter? It's a great story.
Yeah, actually, it's a friend of mine, and she happens to be a nurse, so she gets the clinical language. But her mom had passed away, and her dad actually was interested in moving into a community, right? He is this pretty social guy, and he was missing that a little bit, didn't want to move in with my friend and her family. And they went to a community. It offered independent living and assisted living, memory care. And they went really looking for independent living, okay? And he was interested. And as they were going on the tour, the lady that was touring them, right, is using the shorthand that comes natural to us.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your dad's. Now, dad's there. Tell me a little bit about your dad's ADLs. Tell me a little bit about what your dad likes what he does to socialize. Tell me a little bit about your dad's nutrition, because we talk like that, right? Aaron, what kind of nutrition are you going to have today?
Who are you going to socialize with?
As he's on the tour, she is beginning, she sees a change in his behavior. Like he's with them on the tour.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he's a little bit more behind. He's a little bit more behind. And it's starting to go away, right? And she could feel that. And so as they got back in the car, he said, all they see me as is a problem.
And I couldn't understand half of what they were saying.
And
anyway.
And I didn't even know what the two of you were talking about. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And he is not, he's home still today. But it's about language that people don't understand when they're doing something they don't want to do and they already don't understand it. It's not like we have customers that buy more than once, unless maybe it's another family member. They don't understand exactly what they're doing from cost to what it's going to be like. Now you're using language that I don't understand either. And this is going to cost a lot of money. And so it breeds disconnection. I don't want to live someplace where I don't understand what the day is going to be like. I don't want to live someplace where I don't understand what they're going to do for me. And so it's a hard switch because we do use jargon as actual words. So it's a hard switch that you have to practice. So we have this exercise where you go around in a circle and we give everybody 2 tickets. Okay. And so go around in a circle, you turn over one of your tickets and you tell them what it is. And then you have to say, instead I would do this. And we'll encourage people to do it in stand-up because the care team also talks to customers when they're out doing assessments or when maybe they need to talk to somebody on the tour. They too have to practice. I want to ask you a question because I really want to understand what that looks like. When I use words you don't know, your answer is not going to give me what I need.
Yeah. Just the question saying, well, next thing we're going to do is we're going to do an assessment. Okay, what does that even mean to the consumer? Instead of saying something like, and so I think what would be great next is for our nurse to meet with your dad, Aaron, and he can understand a little bit more about what his routines are like. Okay, everybody understands that.
Yeah.
How does he spend his day? What are his routines like? And instead of, we're going to do an assessment from head to toe.
Yeah.
Jessica, you describe sales as a team sport.
Yeah.
Which I totally get. It makes sense to me. And he's like, you can talk about leveraging the experts on your team as a part of the tour process. When you're working with community teams, how do you get the other departments to buy into this approach and get that chef, right? How do you get them to see the value in that sales interaction and it's not just an interruption in their day?
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Well, let's use the example of the chef for a second. So I'm with you and I'm sitting there and I'm telling you all about our wonderful dining program. You know what, Erin? We have 3 meals a day. And we have an anytime menu. We have an alternative menu. He can choose a hamburger if he doesn't want the spaghetti that's on, right? We're talking about that. Or your chef walks in and says, hey, you know what? I just made some fresh lemon meringue pie. Would you like a piece, Erin? Okay. What a different experience. Now the experience comes to life because you get to touch it, you get to feel it, you get to experience it. And the chef just wowed them. And a lot of times we put it on the sales, so set the experience. But it should be a culture, right? Everyone participating. So how we walk through the halls on a tour. Are people just walking by or are they just smiling at you? I call it like 3 phases. Do they walk by and smile, or do they walk by and introduce themselves? Just, hi, I'm the dining service coordinator. Or the best, highest level would be, I'm the dining service coordinator and I want to learn everything that are all your favorite foods. Yeah. I want to learn what time you like to eat. And what is chocolate your thing? Or I'd love for you to share some recipes because Kelly told me that you love to bake. And so then you're bringing that to life. So it's not on the salesperson, but the whole culture of the community. And how we reinforce that is we teach how to involve, right? Because it's not natural for them and they're breaking away from their daily routine. So how do we want them as a salesperson to engage? But it's not about us. At the end of the day, it's not about me as a salesperson. It's about the customer's experience. And the more move-ins we have because they feel the experience and the culture is inviting, the more move-ins you're going to get. So then you got to figure out, okay, how do I reinforce that? We do that through celebrating, right? I want to tell you about how Kelly, she knocked it out of the park. You should hear her talking about the activities. She totally tied back how my mom loves to play Mahjong. And she said, I heard from Jessica that she loves Mahjong. We got a group on Tuesdays. And I'm telling you, is your mom competitive? Because this is a competitive life. She might lose 50 cents. It's getting serious out there. So it's about bringing it to life in that way. And only your department coordinators. We're just there to set the experience as far as this is what it can look like. They're the ones that bring it to life. Like the first question, how do they bring it to life? This is what it's going to look like if you're here.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I love bringing it full circle. And if you're out there, chefs, it is important to do what you said.
Yeah.
That's so many of them that just want to hide. It just frustrates me.
Yeah, I think where they say most residents spend the bulk of their time every day at a meal.
Yeah.
Right. And so
3 times a day.
Right.
Exactly.
It's really important. That's right.
This has been such a great conversation. Stories and the approach you ladies have taken to teaching how to do this is important. As we wrap up here, I'd love for both of you to just end your presentation with this reflection question of where in your process do you need to slow down to go faster? So I'd love for each of you to give me an example of where you think that's the most critical or where you've seen it have the most impact.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to say the same thing, right? Because it's just who we are. It's in the discovery. It's sitting and trying to understand, being present, connecting. I see you. I hear you. And slowing down to make them feel or have them feel that way. Yeah. It's a gift. And so that's where we need to slow down.
Yeah.
We're just being present and being there and listening and caring about what they're saying to you. It's a privilege as a salesperson to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're helping somebody do one of the hardest things they'll ever do. And that's whether you're talking to the prospective resident or you're talking to a family member, right? Nobody's excited to come and see us, right? Yeah. This is not anybody's highlight of their day. They're looking for every reason not to do it.
Yes.
And if the sales process can be a process that demonstrates, Aaron, you matter to me. And I have the courage to actually listen to you and ask you questions based on your answers to the last question I asked you. Versus I'm going to jump to close because I've heard one or two things that I know we can solve. And so I would say one of the hardest things for a salesperson to do is to have some discipline around patience.
Yeah.
Learn more. I heard somebody say the other day, I've never seen somebody lose a sale because they learned too much about a prospective resident and their family.
Yeah.
So be courageous and be patient.
Right.
Don't try to solve every little thing they have in that moment because the little things are probably not the big thing that's going to make the decision anyway. So it's probably not going to be some of those little things that you'll want to jump to. So I would say that you have to have discipline and courage to be patient, which is hard because you don't want the last community you went to probably jump to, let's look at rooms and price it. And now you're like, oh, but what if I don't give them that information? Am I going to lose a sale? If you're listening and you're tuned in and you're really engaging with that person, you're not going to lose a sale if you didn't show them around. That's not going to happen.
Tell our listeners a little bit about your business, how they can connect with you to learn more.
Sure. So we are KJB Sales Consulting, and we have collectively, 6 years?
Yeah, I think
sadly,
so. Yeah.
industry experience. So we have been so fortunate in the mentors, the leaders that we've had over our career. And Kelly and I are at a point in our lives that we want to give that back. And so that's one thing, right? How do we grow other people in the business? And then secondly, how can we enhance the customer's experience, right? And so by doing this to help develop the sales culture and the sales people in the building, it elevates, we think, that experience, that connection, the ICU. So we're making a difference one person at a time. And that's that. And we're just passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think training, right? Training is something that most companies do, right? You go to your training event, you probably get to do some role playing. You learned a lot about sales techniques and methodologies. And then you go back to the real world and you don't necessarily practice those things, which is where it sticks. And so I think one of the things that really sets us apart is that we have a really strong belief in coaching, right? And yes, you have to do the training. It's important, but you want the investment in training to last. And the only way it can do that is through coaching and through coaching repetitively, small skills that turn into big skills. And so I think that's one of the things as we are doing our trainings, we also do a process that helps those RDSs also coach and keep those skills alive. So I like to say, if we're not practicing skills on each other, we're practicing on the customer. The customer is making the most important decision they'll ever make. Do they really deserve to be practiced on?
No.
Not so much.
Well, ladies, thanks so much for joining me, taking time away from the conference. And I look forward to hearing the details of your presentation.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for joining me on Tips from Trestle.
Thanks for having us. Thank you. Yep.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.